So you've made a quilt and now it's time to baste it and you don't know how. Well, that's why we're here today. I'm going to show you how you can baste your quilt without breaking your back so that you can get it smooth and your quilting will be a success. So welcome to my sewing room. I am Kate with Due North Handmade. If you like my videos, please like this one and subscribe. And without further ado, let me show you how you can baste your quilt. When I baste a quilt, I usually do this on a table because I cannot crawl around on the floor to get things straight without messing something up. Plus, it's just uncomfortable. So I prefer to do something like this at a height that is more comfortable for me to reach. If you have a table in your sewing room that is big enough, yay, you're already there. If not, you can use a folding table, like one of the 8-foot long folding tables that you can pick up at, hardware store or Costco or, wherever is convenient to you. Those work great too, and then you can fold it up and store it and keep it out of the way when you're not using it, and use it for other things too. The important thing is the depth of the table doesn't matter quite so much. You just need enough space that you can comfortably reach and work on. The width is more important. You want to try and make sure that it's not too much wider, or too much narrower rather, than the quilt that you're working with, because it's hard to move back and forth this way. It's a lot easier to move back and forth this way. So I've got my quilt backing here. I'm going to move it out of the way. This is a panel that I am going to quilt up, so I'm going to baste this quilt top panel to the batting and my backing. And my batting is, I'm just using a cotton batting for this one. And I need to move my coating mat out of the way because I am going to use my iron a little bit and I do not want to warp this thing. So I'm going to move this. Now I'm down to the bare wood of my cutting table. If you're using a plastic top table like that folding table that I mentioned earlier, it's going to be fine because when we're using heat, it's not going to be that long. Don't leave your iron on it, but should be okay. So as I get started, my two tools that I really need for this are, I'm using basting spray. The ODIF 505 temporary adhesive is my favorite. It gets less gummy than other adhesive sprays that I've used in the past. That one is my favorite. You can get it at your quilt shops. You can get it online. You can get it from quilt stores, craft stores. It's available in a lot of places. I'm also going to need my iron because it works best when you're spray basting if you can heat set it as you go. So on the table, I'm going to take my batting first. This is a little different than what most people will consider how you would baste your quilt. Normally you'd put your backing down first and then your batting and kind of go from there. I'm going to do my batting and unfold it all the way. There is a direction to your batting. So if you have something that is a needle punched type of batting, most of them are, meaning that they have a bunch of needles that go through when they make it to punch it and keep it together. There's going to be a side that has like these dimples on it, and then the other side is going to have like pimples. Some battings are more obvious than others, but what you want to make sure is that your dimpled side is going to be facing your quilt top, and your pimpled side is going to be facing your backing. So I've got my pimpled side up right now. And my quilt back. I'm going to get it roughly lined up here with the top of my backing piece. Not worrying about it being 100% straight at this point, but just more or less covered, and my backing is bigger than my batting and bigger than my top, so I know that we're going to fit no matter what we do here. So I have it more or less lined up, and I'm just going to start folding up the top half to get it out of the way for right now, because I'm going to work on the bottom half first. So I've got this crease on my backing fabric, and that seems like a good enough place to start. It's more or less in the middle of it. So what I'm going to do is lift up my backing fabric, fold it out of the way, and make sure at this point now that my batting is laying flat, that there aren't any huge major puckers. Then I'm going to take my spray, give it a shake. You don't use a ton of this. It's a pretty light mist that you use, but I'm going to mist it over this whole exposed batting area here. And then take my backing. We don't need that fuzz there. And let it fall softly on there. Now here's where the important part is. When you're smoothing it, start in the middle and go towards the edges. This is going to help prevent it from getting too warped or stretched or saggy. But we're smoothing it towards the edges. And then we have to heat set it, because this basting spray, any basting spray, they work best if they're set. So I'm just going to take my hot iron and just, again, smooth it towards the sides. If you're doing this on a plastic table, it is okay. It's not going to damage it. Just don't leave your iron setting on it for too long. So just a little warm, that's all it needs. And then I'm going to fold this up a little bit more and repeat all the way down the fabric. I will speed the video up a little so you're not sitting watching me do it too much, but we just do the same thing. Lift the backing fabric up, spray, and go. Okay, that's the bottom half. Now we get to go to the top half. So I'm just going to pull it down. And unroll or unfold it as I go. So I know that this was my middle point where it sort of started. So we're going to pull that down to the edge of the table here. And we're going to do the same thing now on the top half. I'm going to separate the layers, the backing fabric and the batting. When you get to the part that you've already basted, you're going to feel or hear it try and separate a little. There it is. So that's where I'm going to stop. And again, just fold out, smooth out your batting. Spray and press. Here I've got a little bit of a pucker where I didn't smooth it out enough. Since it's temporary adhesive, I'm just going to carefully smooth that out, separate it, smooth it back out. No more pucker. The last little bit here. As I'm smoothing, I'm also feeling to make sure I don't feel any bumps. If there's a bump, that might indicate that there's a little fold over happening on the batting. And so that was me just separating the two layers so that I could smooth that back out. Now I feel no bumps. All right, that's the backing. We're halfway done. So let's do the top. I'm gonna flip the whole thing over. So you can see that the backing and the batting, they're pretty well stuck together at this point. And I'm going to repeat the process here the exact same way. I'm going to take my top and I'm going to get it lined up a little bit below the top of the batting. So I make sure that it's fully covered here. So I've got like 3 inches, 4 inches, you know, doesn't need to be a lot, but it needs to be enough so that you're sure that you're fully covered. And I'm going to do the same thing, just sort of smooth it out and make sure that I am all the way covered here. And then just as before, I'm going to take this top section. I like doing the bottom first. I find that it just falls better later. And I'm going to take that top section, roll it up, and pull it up out of the way so that I'm starting more or less in the middle. I'm going to separate these and make sure that this is all laying flat. And here we go. When I spray, I kind of do a box. So I go along the edges here, and then I just do a little bit in the middle. Seems to work really well. Now when you're spreading your top, and same for your backing too, it's important that you're not pulling. You want it to lay flat, but you don't want to stretch it. And if you have something that's pieced, that is particularly important because you don't want those seams to get stressed when you're doing this. I probably should have pressed this a little better before I put it out because I've got some lumps here. I'm going to sort of press as I go here. I don't put water in my iron. I only ever use a spray bottle, so that's what that is, just a little bit of water. So while I am heat setting that basting, I'm also giving it a press and getting some of those nastier wrinkles out so that they don't cause me trouble when I'm quilting it. And then merrily we go along and continue doing the same thing. So what I'm doing here, I'm not pulling it, I'm just holding it up. So as I smooth it out, that helps smooth it down. Let's do something about those creases. And the last little bit at the bottom here. You might be wondering why I always do the back first and the top last. Part of the reason is when you have a pieced top, you've got all of those seams. And as you are moving the sandwich around, you don't want to inadvertently pull those seams or pop those seams as you're going. So I always do the back first so that I don't have that extra movement on the top. But part of it too is that as you smooth it, there's a chance that you could start smoothing things inadvertently that you don't want to on the back. And if your piece top is there and you've got seam allowances or little bits of fabric that might fold over on themselves, there's just some things that can happen that can be more of a pain to deal with later. It's a lot easier if you can get that backing down first and do the top last. Okay, we're almost done here. Now we just got to do the top half of my quilt top. Pulling it down. Unraveling it. And we're going to pull that apart until I find the part where that's already basted, right there. I work at about a 12-inch to 16-inch section at a time. More than that, I find tough to manage. Especially if you have a bigger quilt top. If you try and do too much that way, it can be hard to get your corners to behave and stay out of the way too. The last little bit. And there we are. My quilt is now basted and ready for me to get quilting on it. So now you know how you can table baste, save your back, and get it nice and smooth so that your quilting experience goes just so much better. Thank you for watching my video. Please like this one, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned because the next video I'll post after this one is going to be about binding and how you can make that successful. So thanks again. Happy quilting, my friends.